Hey everybody, it's TR here, and excuse the road noise, but today I'm sitting here at Ross Lumber in Shoshone, and we're getting ready to replace the roof on Rusty, the RV here. So it's early in the morning, there's quite a bit of dew on the roof. You might get a chance to see me fall on my butt today, but we're going to get started. I've already started some of the prep work, but I'm starting to remove some of the screws from the terminating strips. And then as the details progress, so will we. So welcome aboard. Let's go. But before we get started on the project, I want to take a brief pause and a big shout out and a thank you to Rick Ross at Ross Lumber. I tried to pay him. I tried to give him some cash for rent on the shop and use of his forklift and electricity for the fridge and so on and so forth, but he wouldn't have it. What can you say, except thank you, thank you, thank you. Since he wouldn't accept my pay, I'm going to do a little commercial here for him. Rick has 2 huge warehouses full of some of the most amazing reclaimed lumber you could ever want to get your hands on. He's got these huge, thick slabs of pine and oak and walnut there that, like you see these big conference room tables made out of. So if you're looking for that kind of stuff, give Rick a shout. He's easy to find. Just Google Ross Lumber in Shoshone, Idaho. So this stuff sticks really good to the to the coach itself. It sticks okay to the rubber roof as well. And it did seal up a problem I had, but it's been a real bugger to get off. And so I finally found a technique that seems to be working pretty good. Just going to take and split, like right here, with the utility knife. And that's giving me a nice way to get into the seam there. I'm going to get this knife hot. So hot knife did a pretty good job of taking that off the top of the coach here. So let's move on to day one. What I'm working on here is I'm removing the screws from the aluminum termination strip that holds the rubber roof down to the coach. There's about 1 billion of these 1-inch self-tappers in here. Where I could get access to the screw head, then I could just pull the equipment right out like I did here with this air horn. Then you get into a situation like this where you've got die-core on screw heads that you got to peel back before you can get onto them with your screwdriver. Moving on here, we're just demoing the cellular booster antenna there. That's the cover for the old fridge vent. I replaced the fridge in 2016 with a Total Electric, so I filled that hole with foam. Without a doubt, this forklift turns out to be the most valuable tool on the entire project. Thanks again, Rick, for letting me use that. It was really handy to get equipment on and off the roof like this AC unit here. This unit's held down with 3/8 lag screws, and Newmar reinforced the roof there so there was a location to screw it into and hold it down tightly. So I didn't want to take the unit apart up on the roof. I just wanted to leave it in one unit because I was going to store it. So I just tipped it up and disconnected the signal and electrical cables from underneath. Welcome back to day 2 on how to replace your RV's roof. Got a pretty good start on it yesterday, but thunderstorms showed up and I had to move inside, so I'm sitting inside the shop now. That was my backup plan all along, because when you take your roof off, you know it's going to rain. You can count on it. I'll give you a quick tour here and just kind of let you see what we've got done, and then I'm going to dig into it. So that's the rear air conditioner, and you can see I have just a couple things left. I got to get this ladder loose. I've got that old vent there. I started on it, broke the vent off, but I got to go in and clean that all up and get the screws out. I've got most of the screws removed from the rubber roof terminating strips. That's the skylight into the bathroom, into the shower. Kitchen vent, bathroom vent. That's the old fringe vent. That's actually going to get covered up. We don't need it anymore. I'm going to relocate that cable that you see hanging out of there. That's for my cellular booster. That hole there is the range vent. That's from the microwave. It has a smoke and grease vent on it. So I think I'll share a little insider tip with you. Well, I'm not an insider, but here's something I've learned and discovered. This tool right here, which is just a roller painter's tool, they use it for cleaning paint brushes and rollers and so on and so forth. But this little end right here has been so invaluable to pick out this die cord that's been put around some of these screw heads. Show you. So yeah, you can just dig down in here around these screw heads, and I found that a motion that you can wrap around it and then pull back works the best to get this old die cord out of there. So you can get onto the screw head. You don't have to clean it completely off, you just got to get into it enough to where you can get to the screw head. So when I peeled this corner back, I think I found some black mold, and so I went and got a particulate mask. Aspergillus niger is nothing to mess with. So I'm going to do a little bit more prep work up here before I start peeling this rubber off. So this black mold really slowed the whole process down. You can see here I'm being really careful to collect everything and kind of get it bagged up right away so it's not getting spread around. There were a total of 3 sheets that had this black mold, so it really slowed things down. So here I'm just continuing to work on the area with the black mold in it. You can see it there, I've got it circled. So I threw away all the insulation. I was really careful when I took those sheets off to get them disposed of right away so I wasn't spreading that stuff around. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's day 3 of the RV roof replacement project. Yesterday I kind of figured out how to get things stripped off and how to do it efficiently. And so today I'm going to try to get the rest of the sheathing done. And I got my first piece down, looks pretty good, so I'm going to get cracking on this. What I was going to do is take a quick minute here and show you the technique I've worked out to remove this roof, the old sheathing. It has to come off because when you take this roofing off, you end up with this condition. And so what this is the fiber off the back of the old roof. And it's a pain in the butt. Plus trying to get into these screws sometimes is a real pain as well. So I'm going to show you what I've started doing here to make this a whole lot easier. So the studs in this thing are on 16-inch centers. So basically what I've been doing is I just come in here and I get the tape on here and I'll find 32 inches here. Just make a mark. And then it's a matter of splitting this roof. You need a good sharp utility knife. And then, where's my crowbar? Just get underneath it any way you can. Pull this up. Now, what I've discovered that makes it easier is find your screw, just take the knife and just take that screw out. So I found this to be pretty useful because it keeps this cloth from getting wrapped around your screwdriver bit, which can be a pain in the butt. One of the other things I want to mention is I'm being pretty careful with the screws. I'm not reusing them. It's $6 for new screws. Hey everybody, it's TR, and here we are with day 4 of the RV roof replacement project. I've pretty much got everything broken loose, all the sheathings taken loose and ready to go off. But I'm leaving it in place, so I've got a platform to work from, and then I have this piece that I'm kneeling on right now. I'm kind of sliding back and forth to help give me a little better working surface. And so right now I'm just cutting sheets of sheathing, say that fast 3 times without saying something bad. I'm going to take a minute here and show you how I'm going to locate these holes that I got to cut in the sheathing to install the vents and stuff that are coming out. As you can see, I've got this sheathing just held back to where the edge of the vent is, and I've got it flush so my seam's square, and it's pretty square, so it's close enough. And so I'm just going to eyeball from basically the edge of that, and so that's 7 inches. So we're going to come in here and we'll just make a mark about right here, 7 inches, and then we'll just eyeball from the center of this. So hey everybody, it's TR back on day 5 of the roof project, and I've now got most of the sheathing done. I kind of ran into a bit of a rat's nest over here with some of this wiring. It never ceases to amaze me where mice can get, but at some point in time during Rusty's life, a mouse was inhabiting the roof here, and I bet I vacuumed up 10 pounds of popcorn and nuts and trail mix and all kinds of stuff. Let's see, where'd I do with my leg? Where's the leg? Peace. I've been adding some additional wiring, and so that's kind of slowed me down a little bit here on the last little stretch of this, but otherwise I'm just about down to the last sheet. Well, the sheathing is almost done. I'm ready to put down the last sheet. Alright, so here's how to do the cutouts for the AC and the other penetrations you got to go through the sheathing with. You see here I've kind of pre-drilled some holes just big enough to get the router bit through. I better get some hearing protection in because this thing is loud. That's all there is to that, except for the mess it makes. So that's how you put a hole in the sheathing for the AC. The rubber roof goes on today. Got all the sheathing taken care of over the last couple days. Just a little bit of sanding to do on some spots that I patched, and I'm going to work on some of this tin. Got some spots here I'm going to go back and sand out. Had a couple knots pop out as I was putting the sheathing down, so I filled those in with some acrylic filler. So in this time lapse I'm working on the seams. I'm just kind of sanding and beveling the top edge off, patching some holes there where the knots fell out, and I had a little bit of a seam gap there that I wanted to fill. And then it was time to put the roof on. So the roof is down. I've got the rubber on the roof now. I've got it stretched out here a little bit, just kind of letting it relax. Okay, it's late on day 6, and I'm about ready to put this rubber down. So I've got the roof pulled back a little bit so I can put down the die-core tape. But the first thing I'm going to do is kind of work out the detail here and see how this is all going to go together. Get it cut right. Hey, it's day 7 and this rubber roof is going down, so let's get to it. So this pretty much went as I expected, but I did learn a lesson here. Rather than folding this roof back, I should have rolled it up. It would have been much easier to reapply. I used the 901BA die-core bonding adhesive. I applied it at about 160 square feet to the gallon. I used a total of 1.5 gallons of the adhesive on the entire roof. So here you can see I'm rolling it out with a low nap roller, and now I'm struggling and fighting to get that roof reinstalled because I didn't roll it up. Using a broom here to rough out most of the large bubbles and wrinkles. And then as I needed to, I went around on my hands and knees with my hands and I worked the bubbles to the vents. I rolled the back half up and that went a lot easier. I didn't have nearly as many bubbles or didn't have to fight it quite as much to get it down and get it smoothed out. So I got the roof down. It's time to put the terminating bars on. So here I am working on the terminating bars, and what you see me doing there is applying the butyl tape to the back of the termination bar. It worked out a lot easier that way. So I'm installing the butyl tape, the termination bar, and the fasteners in this step. I started working from the middle and then went out to the ends and pinned things down, and then I put a screw about every 1.5 to 2 inches. Let's do the skylight. What do you say? A sharp utility knife is really handy here. What you do is you just cut an X to the size of the opening that you need, and then go back and trim off the flaps. Alright, let's give that a little while to set up and move on to the next one. I do intend to replace this vent. It's something I didn't realize I was going to need, or I would have ordered it from the factory. Alright, let's do the kitchen vent. So just like the other vents, you just cut the corners, make yourself an X to the center of the opening. In my case, again, I'm trimming the flaps off. It was not too practical to try to glue it or attach it in some way to the aluminum framing. Take the die-core tape off the fan here and then set it in the hole. I did make a mistake in this, and I should have gone to the kitchen, this is the kitchen vent, and made sure that the vent was square in the hole. It was a little out of square. You can't really see it in the kitchen because there's a flange that covers it up, but I noticed it when I was putting the flange in. Here I'm kind of screwing into the aluminum framing, and so I need to crank up the power on the drill so I can get that self-tapper to go through the aluminum. Oh. Strip that right out. I'm not going to put the finish covers on because I've got to put sealant around all these edges, and so I want to be able to get in and touch up all the screw heads and everything. I'm saving the front pieces for last. I got the air horns, solar panel for the chassis battery maintainer, and then I've got 2 antennas to go in plus the TV antenna, but I'm leaving that open because I got to get the AC units in here. So I think I need to prep for the AC units. It's been 7 working days. I probably have, I'm guessing probably 40 or 50 hours into this project. And I just have a couple little things left to do. I'm going to finish up installing the AC units. I have to trim out some vents. And then it's time to put the solar panels on. So you want to stick around because we're going to wrap her up today. So basically what I'm working on here is just getting the AC unit located. There's a fitting you put in the roof and you kind of make sure it's lined up so that the air flows smoothly through it. But pretty much once you get that put together, then it's just a matter of remaking the electrical. Here I'm pulling the wiring from the RV itself and getting it secured in this junction box. You just want that snug. You don't want it over tight. You don't want to crush that cable. Now basically we're going to mount the box up. I'm putting it right in the same location that the factory did. Let's just clean up some wires here, and now I want you to listen for it. There's going to be a click here. That's the click of the retainer snapping into that junction box, and you want to hear that to make sure that cable's secure. So here I'm just making up the grounds. reusing the wire nuts that were used on the cables originally. I had saved those. Then we're going to just tuck them gently and nicely into the box. You'll notice here that I used Avery labels, and so what I did was I labeled all my cables with unique numbers, and that way I know I'm getting it back together there. Stripping just enough wire to get a wire nut on things. Twist them up a little bit, and then get an appropriately sized wire nut. In this case, I'm using orange, which are sized for this gauge of wire. The factory, you can see, use those quick connects. I'm just waiting for these ACs to turn on before I button everything up, make sure I get everything wired right. Oh, well, they're not going to turn on with the breakers turned off. Yeah, it's been a long project and I'm tired. But so let me get off the roof one more time. This is about the 12,000th time in the last week. And go turn on the breakers, and I bet you they'll start right up. Keep your fingers crossed for me. Thanks. While I've got this thing apart, I'm going to go ahead and clean off the coils and everything because they're a little bit dirty and dusty, and so why not? So I'm carefully vacuuming the coils off here on the front of the condenser for the AC unit. And now I'm putting it back together, just refitting the tin and the little bit of insulation that was on it. And then we'll get the main fiberglass cover back on and screwed back on, and then we're pretty much done with the AC unit. What I'm doing here is just wiping off the inner skylight cover, and then I'm going to mount up this old skylight cover. I'm going to get a new one of these. It's one of those things that would have been nice to get fresh from the factory. I'm sealing the seams here on this roof with this Dicor lap sealant. So I'm just applying about a 3/8 inch bead of the Dicor sealant to both sides of the terminating strip, and then I'm also covering all the screw heads. So as far as project costs go, I had the rubber roof material. I bought 40 foot of that at about $11.49 a foot, so we'll just call that $460. The glue, the butyl tape, and sealer kit, which came with 2 gallons of the adhesive and 150 foot of the 3/4 inch butyl tape, 6 tubes of the Dicor lap sealant. That was $166. I bought 9 sheets of plywood sheathing, 3/8 inch thick. That was about $280. I used 1 bale of R13 insulation, replacing the insulation that had been contaminated by black mold, and then also the mouse urine. That was $44. Termination strips. The way that worked out and the way they laid out, I would have had a short cut piece if I'd have only bought 9 of them. So I just bought 10, and I threw away a little extra, but at $6 a piece it wasn't too bad. It's $60 total for those. I did have to buy additional butyl tape and sealant, so I bought 50 foot of tape and another 4 tubes of the Dicor lap sealant. That was $52. I put a new bath vent in. That's the Fantastic Fan at $129. I replaced the 2 radio antennas that the coach had. One of them had been busted off. I probably hit a tree or something, and the other was looking pretty sad, so they were $13 a piece, so why not? The chassis battery solar panel, I replaced that. I put a 20-watt panel in. That was $40. And then in miscellaneous hardware and supplies, that screws, and I had to buy a couple of flush trim router bits because one of them, the bearing burned up in it, and I didn't have a replacement. And then I bought a pint of lacquer thinner, which I'd been using to clean up the seams and take off the remainder of that Eternabond that you saw me removing in episode 1. So that gives us a total project cost of $1,342. Not bad. So by the numbers at a high level, we used 9 sheets of 3/8 inch plywood. We used 40 foot of EDPM rubber roofing. I could have got by with 38. There were 365 1-inch sheathing to metal stud screws that I used. That was screwing down the sheathing. So I used 650 1-inch self-tapping hex head screws, galvanized, and those were used in the termination strips and in all the flanges. There were 92 feet of terminating bar I needed, 209 feet of butyl tape, 10 tubes of lap sealant, and it was 9 days start to finish, including the solar install. There were 5 owies that required Band-Aids, 432 cuss words, and that's probably a conservative estimate, 212 cups of coffee, 10,000 times up and down the ladder, and that's not a conservative estimate, 14 pounds of weight loss during the project, 3 stripped out screwdriver bits, 1 dead sander, and an hour or 2 a day of just plain old bullshitting. However, I give it a 10 for the satisfaction level of doing the project myself. So if you found value in this series of videos, I'd really appreciate that thumbs up. Don't hesitate to make comments or ask questions below. I really do love interacting with the audience, and so I'm happy to try to answer your questions or comments as soon as I can. Don't forget to subscribe, because I've got a lot of RV how-to videos still to come. Looking forward, looking at probably remodeling the inside, changing out the blinds. We're going to be replacing the microwave and range and the appliances with some new fresh ones, and I'll be doing videos on all of those in the future. And then don't forget to click that little bell button next to the subscribe button, and that'll remind you that I've got a new video out. Well, it's time to go. I know it was a long slog to get here, wasn't it? Tell me about it. But we did it. It's done. The project it's worked out great. We've lived through 4 inches of rain since then. And yeah, okay, so some of you folks that that live where 4 inches is commonplace in a day, that's over a period of a couple of weeks. But I've been up there, inspected a couple times, found no leaks. Looks like everything's in great shape. Thanks a lot for watching. I do appreciate it. Until we get together again, peace.